What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It's time for the latest real-world asset tokenization news. We're your hosts. I'm Herwig. You can call me Happy if that's easier. And, of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle. How are you this week, buddy?
Hello, Herwig. I am doing great. It's good to be here. Thank you for holding down the fort without me. Sorry for the last couple of months. I've been a little flakier than I've been over the last 6 years, but you know, it's all good things. Travel sometimes gets a little complicated, but it's good to be back on the show. An exciting week. The IPO markets starting to bloom. And on top of that, we've got other kinds of articles, including Plume, not to be a poet, has some exciting announcements along with so many other awesome stuff in the market movements. Herwig, I'm ready to dive in.
There's so much more news behind that, dude. So let's get right into the show. But if you like it, please give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a comment. We'd love to talk to you. We'd like to hear your feedback. We're always on the move, making changes to make it better. So with that, Kyle, as he said, time for the market movements.
All right, what's got your mind here to kick it off, Herwig?
Kyle, it's hard not to talk about the elephant in the room. It's not Wally. We're actually talking about Circle. Okay, this was a huge IPO for the markets, for crypto, for RWAs, in my opinion, representing the fact that this is kind of the stablecoin company that's public. That's, you know, an RWA company, right? It's kind of the first one being public. So I think this is super, super cool. And of course, it did exceptionally well. I think it's doing even better. None of this is investment advice, but it is, you know, what they would call a hot stock, I think. Kyle, what's your insights on this?
Yeah, no, well, it's performed really well day one. We'll have to see how there does generally tend to be some turbulence in these types of stocks over the first week and a half as the market starts to find its level. I'm not sure it's actually the best business in the world. So it'll be interesting to see if it really does hold the super strong levels that it's at relative to the earnings that the company makes. That's probably a conversation for a different day. But what I do think is obviously a strong vote of confidence here is we saw what being public meant for Coinbase. It provided them with huge institutional capital access. It also did provide them with some level of regulatory protection. Now, obviously, Coinbase did get all kinds of investigations from the SEC, but I think generally across the industry, many did feel like it was consensus that it was helpful for them that they were a public company and that they could use the fact that they had all of these stockholders, all of these public retail people involved, and that they could use the fact that they have the same business model from when they went public and as kind of cover for some of the things that the SEC was trying to prosecute back in the day. And so I think this is a strong signal for stablecoins as a whole, that this is a product that's likely here to stay. Obviously, we do have some of these bills that are coming through Congress, but provided that those things don't get passed, or provided that there's a new, president in 3 years that is hostile towards crypto, you got to feel like it's a bullish sign for the market that we're bringing some of these companies public and into the public domain. And so I think for that reason, this is a huge win for Circle, who's tried to go public a few times now. It's exciting to see they finally made it happen.
100%. And given that they are, a pure play stablecoin company in this case, that's a now public company, revenue multiple and PE multiples, all kinds of other tools that all these other stablecoin companies are now going to have to live up to, because Circle has kind of set the standard. So I think it's pretty cool to now see the race is on, and then great validation for all of these stable companies that an IPO could one day well be possible to follow suit in the same path as Circle here. So very exciting, but we have to move on because there's even more exciting news. I thought this was pretty cool, Kyle, from MetaWealth. Okay, they got an over $10 billion asset manager in Europe called APS to subscribe into their latest offering. They did a pretty cool announcement that they, now did a latest offering in Rome. And it looks like they put $1.5 million or however much it is, a little over that much in 2 offerings or so, however the article reads. So that's a huge deal because now it's no longer just sort of the individual investor because it's open to all. It's now getting subscribed by the big players themselves. So actually a testament to, I think, MetaWealth's probably assets that they're bringing to the market. Also just a sign of where the times are headed. We're now seeing, institutions, we're seeing large asset managers get into buying tokenized real estate. I think that's enormous. We've had Amar, the CEO, on the show before. He's actually going to be on the RWA watering hole. That's the weekly X Spaces we do on Thursdays for the RWA Foundation, right, for Wally. So we definitely look forward to getting more insight on exactly how that went down, if they just kind of signed up, if this was already being worked on, of course, if they plan to subscribe a whole lot more, and if this means that there are more projects coming down the pipeline even faster. I'm sure it's yes to all of the above. Kyle, anything you want to add to this?
First off, when is this RWA watering hole Twitter or X Spaces so that people that are interested can tune in?
None other than 11 a.m. Just go follow the RWA Foundation account on X. It's RWA Foundation _ it's the official one. And you can go ahead and, put that reminder button to help you, calendar it up.
Great.
Make sure you tune in.
11 on Thursdays. Well, shout out to MetaWealth. I think that, finding the buy side mandates is the most important part of this process. It's traditionally been the most difficult part. It's finding people to actually buy your products. I think for a long time, if you ask anybody in the tokenized real estate space, it was a hard sell to get someone that invests in real estate, which is a very conservative, non-tech focused, consistent industry and a very kind of old standard asset class. It's hard to get that type of investor to want to participate in new digital offerings, right? They kind of are counterintuitive to have a tokenized real estate property. If you're an investor, that's a whole basket of risk that you may not have the tools or the track record to be able to observe on your own, and therefore makes it even more difficult to justify to your LPs. And so it's wonderful to see that some of those gates are being lifted. And no pressure to MetaWealth, but I really hope this one succeeds because I'd love to see a case study come out of this of, you know what, we raised X amount of millions from these types of funds. We were then able to, over a 3, 5, 10-year period, pay that back over a particular IRR and do that successfully. I think that the industry really needs to see more of these successful use cases, even if they're private tokenizations that don't have a huge public solicited, stack of investors. Just successfully tokenizing and proving the value of this type of offering, I think, is huge for the industry. So shout out to MetaWealth for kicking off the first step.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And we heard from him last time from Amar that they're getting into DeFi as well for their token products. And other than that, I think they're doing all the right things. I love to see it, and we're proud to have them as an RWA Foundation member. And speaking of RWA Foundation members, huge congratulations to Plume for launching their mainnet, Kyle. They did it. They got there. They now have 150 million in RWAs. They're focused on their Nest vaults. So you can really look at this as sort of a vault play where you can now go and get into these vaults, presumably with stable coins and others, potentially to get exposure to these RWAs that bear yield, of course, and use that. So I think that's awesome to see. Kyle, any thoughts on Plume? It's tragic to hear about one of their co-founders passing away, but they're pushing onwards, and I'm sure he'd be happy to see them launch forward with their mainnet and so much success that seems to be behind them. They got Apollo to invest into Plume and Han Ventures. This is pretty stacked so far.
Yeah, no, they're super heavily fundraised, and they've done a nice job of continuing to drive the RWA narrative in the public markets, and not public markets necessarily, but the public eye rather. So I think that's been a huge win for Plume. They've had a wonderful strategy of bringing on new issuers, bringing on new platforms, keeping everybody entertained and intrigued. It's exciting to see their mainnet is live. And as someone that's building a test net right now, major congratulations to Plume. It's not easy to bring a blockchain network to mainnet, and $150 million is a modest amount, and it's exciting to see them grow that over time. I'm sure that they're targeting probably a 10x on that in the next 12 months. Now that their mainnet is live, they should be able to bring on a bunch of the issuers that I know they've had in their pipeline. So exciting stuff.
We're seeing tons of milestones lately. We saw Wisdom Tree pass over 300 million for one of their products, Open Eden over 250 million for their treasury product, and over $1 billion for Stoker. So I don't think that's far away for Plume either, Kyle. That's totally doable. I think honestly, Ondo and Plume, they might have the best brands in crypto for RWA. So as you said, they've done a real good job on building that. But another phenomenal company in the space is none other than Figure Markets. I thought what they have done now is pretty freaking awesome. They've launched democratized Prime, which is essentially their way of saying, hey, you can now access these HELOCs via DeFi in a regulated manner through their platform, completely democratized in the sense that actually both institutions and retail are taking advantage of the same opportunity. I think they started with 20 million HELOC financing, but they're doing over 700 million a day on Provenance, using the Provenance blockchain, powering these HELOCs, getting HELOCs. So they are the biggest non-bank lender for HELOCs in the country. That's how big they are. Pretty crazy. Awesome to see. Kyle, the implications of this, what do you think?
I love this. I think that democratizing liquidity access, or I guess like liquidity provision access, is a really cool way to bring down interest rates. So, we've seen that, mortgage interest rates are really high. A lot of these things are really high, but presumably there's a lot of capital that's sitting on the sidelines that would be willing to potentially offer competitive rates on these things. And so essentially creating a marketplace where anybody with liquidity can bid on potential debt structures in a private credit model, I think it's fascinating. I think it's a really, really cool thing. It's exactly the DeFi model, and Figure's done everything the right way. So I love this product. I love what they're building, and I think it's a really, really cool thing. And Mike Cagney's from Philly, so that's pretty cool too.
Go Birds. Let's go. Well, those are the biggest market movements this week. That's what you need to know happening in RWAs. But there is so much more, so many more token offerings, so much more announcements, real estate. There was so much news this week in tokenized real estate, folks. So don't go anywhere. A quick update from the RWA Foundation, and then we'll dive into the rest of it. Alrighty, it's time to get into the latest and greatest around Wally and the RWA Foundation, our initiative to help support the industry, bringing together all the biggest L1s, L2s, the tokenization engines, the marketplaces, the DeFi applications, and everybody else supporting the industry, powering RWAs. We need to get together. We need to create standards. We need to address these challenges, unify a single voice. We've got a lot of great members. You should go check them out on our website. You can also learn about our DAO, the Wally DAO, imminently coming soon. So go read that white paper. But we have a way for crypto natives to support RWAs in the industry too. So all kinds of cool perks and benefits you'll get from the tokens. We're going to be talking about that with our community, with our members next week or this week, whenever you're listening to it. But look out for it on Thursdays. Okay, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, we've got the RWA watering hole where we feature members from the community, RWA pioneers, leaders. We get into it, give many chances for the community to jump on stage and have a conversation with us. So if you're not tapping into Mondays on chain, you now can also tap in on Thursdays as well. So this is another great series to get into where we're going to be teasing a lot more about the coming token generation event, the TGE for Wally, as well as some of the initiatives we're planning as well for the RWA Foundation as we continue to grow. So thank you for your all support, everybody. Please check it out. Please give us a follow on all our different channels there. Join our Telegram. It's a lot of fun. We're having fun in that. community in that Telegram group. So with that, we've got an amazing interview. I told you last week about over 200 billion in real estate deeds coming to Balcony. Okay, this is in Bergen County from New Jersey, one of the wealthiest suburbs. It's awesome. Can't wait to dive into this interview. Thanks to Jason. Let's roll it.
Welcome back to Security Token Show interviews. This week, we are joined by both Balcony and Ava Labs with very, very exciting news that we covered last week, which is the fact that New Jersey's Bergen County is bringing on $240 billion worth of real estate deeds, all on chain, specifically Avalanche, through Balcony's platform. But before we dive into all of it, gentlemen, how are we today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Doing
well. Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. So with this news, we're talking about deeds, right? Tell me a little bit about why deeds. What's the value proposition for putting deeds on chain? I feel like we've seen a lot of fractional real estate, equity into certain projects, whether commercial or residential. You guys are doing full on deeds. Tell us a little bit about the thought process on this.
Yeah, so ownership is obviously very important in real estate, and the way we've always looked at it is that the deed is a piece of paper, a flimsy piece of paper that proves ownership of your most valuable asset, but it could be ripped off. People create fake deeds all the time. People commit deed fraud, mortgage fraud, and there's no real way to actually authenticate the validity of this document, or at least it's difficult to without it being on the blockchain. The blockchain provides a way for direct document issuance from the government on chain on a distributed ledger that you could trace back to the origin. So we always felt that, if we're going to look to tokenize real estate in a different way than fractionalization, that's a lot of people entering the space now are very focused on security token offerings. We're focused on step one, tokenizing the asset as a whole before you fractionalize it, and validating ownership of it, and getting the governments on board is a critical piece of that. So we've always felt that the deed and the work that we're going to do with Bergen County and at the county clerk's office is extremely important to foster a world where everybody can trust this and believe the validity of ownership of an asset. And with the rise in AI, fraudulent documents could be fabricated instantly that are completely indistinguishable from the real thing. So we actually believe that cases of deed fraud are on the rise. They'll continue to rise until something is done to prevent it.
Makes sense. And what would be some of the information that lives on chain? Is it just the record of who owns that specific, property, or is there metadata attached to it? What can people find on chain now?
We're trying to bring in everything, all associated documents. So what we've developed is this novel NFT protocol that allows us to tokenize an entire capital asset as a whole, and then also tokenize the associated documents and let them live within that overarching NFT. So you can think of it as a digital vault. We're creating a digital replica of the asset itself, and then encapsulating all the attributes of that asset. So, the reason that we've chosen an NFT to represent a real estate property is because real estate is non-fungible. Every deal is unique based on the different attributes that make it unique. So you need to tokenize it with a proper wrapper first. And then you also need to encapsulate all the information that's associated with it with true provenance of where that information came from. So if you see the deed that's been issued from the county, you know that it's accurate. If you see tax assessment information that was actually issued by the tax assessor, you know exactly where it came from, and so on.
Makes sense. I do want to dive into some more of that, but before so, we have the other side of the conversation here, which is the blockchain you're building on, Avalanche. Eric, tell us a little bit about why you feel Balcony and Avalanche have a natural fit here, how that conversation came about, and tell us a little bit about maybe like the level of involvement Avalanche has in like support versus Balcony mostly building on the chain itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met the Balcony team, I believe it was like at least at this point 3 years ago, and they were looking for a chain to call home. And one thing that stood out, I believe, for the Balcony team in particular, is that because they were working with sensitive information and with government entities, they needed a chain where they can basically customize rule sets to meet those specifications. So on Avalanche, obviously, you can build your own custom app chains. We call them Avalanche L1s, and that's exactly what Balcony did. And throughout the process, I would say our involvement and our support has more so been on the technical side, helping them to build a L1. It's a non-trivial effort. It's much, there's a much more that goes into it than just deploying a dApp, for example, on the C chain, which is the public permissionless chain on Avalanche. So a team within Avalanche called Alva Cloud that has done almost 100 of these custom L1 deployments helped Balcony throughout the process there. And then I would say where the Balcony team really shines is on the BD front, right? Liaising with these government officials, different counties, municipals, and that's where I would say, like, us as a blockchain software provider, right? We're less equipped to do. So overall, it's been an extremely fruitful partnership between us.
Very cool. And you kind of touched on my next question, but I do want to dive deeper into how you guys are balancing transparency with privacy. Obviously, this is people's homes that you're representing, right? And government access as well. So curious maybe on like different levels of rules or who's allowed to see some of this stuff. If anyone can just hop in and check it out. And of course, we've seen this in the past with like the subnets or now L1s, right? Where you can move over to the public chain or the full public operational chain, right? But yeah, how are you guys balancing the privacy aspect of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from the beginning, Avalanche L1s were meant to be fully customizable at every level, right, in terms of permissioning. So you can actually permission at the chain level as to who has access to the underlying blockchain, both as a developer, a validator, and user. So that was really important. But as we started having more conversations over the years, it became apparent for certain use cases, right? Government use cases, payments with traditional fintechs, they really needed a custom privacy solution. So we actually went out and acquired a company that did ZK/homomorphic encryption. This was about maybe 2 years ago. And since then, we've taken a lot of effort, right, rolling them into the Alva Cloud stack. And then from our standpoint, so what came out of there were two products so far. One is ERC, which is a new token standard for private transactions. And then the other is AVA-C, which we announced at the Avalanche Summit 2 weeks ago. That's a whole privacy suite for new app chain builders. So, and the benefit to Balcony is also because they're on their own Avalanche L1, right? All of this is customizable. They can be built into the chain from day one. So we're excited to continue rolling out these products, and I think they'll really push Avalanche as being the preferred blockchain for a lot of these government use cases.
Awesome. Before we move on, for anyone that's watching as a part of the Security Token Show, we will be moving on to the next section of the show. But if you want to watch the full interview, we will have it available on our YouTube channel at STM TV Official. With that, next section of the show.
Wow, Kyle, I just love Balcony. That's why I chose them as Company of the Week last week. But they're just doing great things, and they're going to lead a lot of RWAs and deeds coming on chain. Love to see it. We've also got a great webinar if you're interested in alternative funds with IFI Global, one of the leading research groups. Do a lot more than that too, but we've got some of their great folks coming on alongside Archax and Sid Powell, CEO of Maple, joining us on this webinar. So mark your calendars for June 17th at noon Eastern for this great webinar. Thank you, Jason.
I will be checking it out.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Kyle, wow, we got a lot of news. Excuse me. This is going to be a bit to run through. So I'm going to just get right into the announcements.
Sure.
And, I'm looking forward to your feedback afterwards here. But I just want to start off by saying that 21X has officially integrated USDC, which means they can now do atomic settlement, which I think is pretty cool to see. Just to highlight how now you, of course, have securities on one end, on Polygon, I think it is for 21X, but you can now, of course, settle instantly with USDC. That's the future. They also have a money market fund, which I also think is the future settlement tool. That one I think is powered by SPI that they did with Black Manta, but SPI was also in the news this week. SPI Digital Markets, they partner with Mercury FinTech to bring their products onto the Mercury FinTech platform. I believe it's in Europe, and SPI, obviously a leading bank out of Japan. Collaterize has officially launched their launchpad on Solana, despite their token not doing so hot since the announcement, even though not investment advice. I think it's very cool to see this model, Kyle. Collaterize actually says they have a launchpad, or if you have an RWA like private equity, real estate, whatever, you can go use the launchpad. Then basically you have to reach 120% of your goal. You get 100% of the funding, 15% goes to liquidity, and then 5% goes to the platform. And it does all of the compliance, KYC, KYB, and all that. It's on Solana. It's powered completely by Solana and requires 100,000 collat tokens for you to use the launchpad. And last but not least, just to end on this announcement here, DZ Bank has officially tapped Ripple for their custody platform, likely using the Metaco technology that they acquired, Ripple acquired. But DZ Bank is huge, is the second biggest bank out of Germany. I think 350 billion in assets under custody. So this could be big as they enter into the crypto asset space as well as RWAs, right? So Kyle, any thoughts about these announcements this week?
Yeah, it's a great high level. If this is the token debrief section, we are really in for a treat. Another amazing week of tokenized news. I think the atomic settlement stuff is interesting. We've seen a lot of the investment banks use the terminology delivery versus payment as the big terminology here. I think atomic settlement is crucial for settling a lot of these things, especially on the currency side, because of the fact that Forex can change prices. You need to be able to settle the asset at the exact same time that you're moving the opposite asset. That way you don't have to deal with the currency risk and those types of things. So I think that's a wonderful integration. Makes a ton of sense for 21X, who just continues to drive innovation in this industry. And then the collateralized platform, it's an interesting model to have companies kind of oversubscribe their deal in order to provide liquidity. I actually like this idea. I think it makes sense to me in a lot of ways. That, all right, you know what? Let's try to backstop this on the initial fundraise, and people are the most excited about this thing to provide liquidity for the deal. And presumably there's a collateralization component in the collateralized platform, which is where they're providing this initial liquidity using the capital. So it will be wonderful to see how this goes and how this succeeds on the Solana blockchain. I haven't seen a ton of real RWA adoption on Solana, despite the fact there's a lot of meme coins and a lot of liquidity there right now. So I'm excited about that one.
There's a lot coming to Solana. I love to see it. And I love to see vaults. Collateralization is one of the big trends I've been saying is going to unlock RWAs way faster than we've seen before. So good on them, assuming that they're pursuing it that way. And they'll get to join the next segment of token updates very soon. Which, wow, the market is once again lots to cover. Starting off with Etherfuse. Their SETI's product has now been rated by Particula, the leading, rating agency for RWAs. Basically, they're putting out all kinds of great in-depth research and review of basically the structures and all the potential risks and assigning scores to them. So that investors can have a better understanding of these on-chain products. They've rated a lot of RWAs now to date, Etherfuse is being the latest. C3 Bullion is now a Reg A Plus offering that's been approved, that's on-chain, powered by Vertalo on tZERO. So tZERO powering another primary offering. And Houston-based PJKT, I think they mean Project 72. Project 72 is tokenizing metallurgical coal reserves. Okay, they actually are focused on environmental clean tech for coal assets, and they're bringing coal on chain, which I think is pretty cool. Might be the first. Tradable NFT bonds are also now available through Credefi, through their Credefi 3.0 upgrade and their Credi staking, Xcredi staking, to basically get exposure to these yields behind their real world assets. And Zodia is now offering custody for tokenized emeralds. So if you've got tokenized emeralds, the standard chartered Zodia is going to be able to custody those for you. And a couple stable coins to end on here. Kyle, would love to get your thoughts on all of these updates if you've got any. But USD tZERO is launching the XAU tZERO token on the TON network, and that's a tokenized gold stable coin. And finally, SocGen Forge was tapped by BCB Group for their European-based stable coin. So some traction for the euro there as people maybe pursue some alternatives to the dollar. Kyle, those are the token updates.
Yeah, well, this is I think a good segment, but a lot of acronyms and all kinds of jargon in this one. The USDT tZERO stablecoin seems to be the Tron version of these Tether style platforms. So XAUT is the Tether gold tokens, and then the XAUT tZERO is the Telegram's TON blockchains version of this, which we have actually seen quite a bit of adoption coming from the Telegram network just because of how many users they have and how popular that is in the crypto economy. I'm bullish on commodities, as we talked about, so I would like to learn more about this PJKT72 and their coal reserves product, minerals and natural resources. I'm bullish on, and so that one makes sense. And then same with C3 Bullion. I'm excited that tZERO has another new product launching on their platform, a Reg A Plus. We've seen varying success with the Reg A Plus exemption. Companies like Exodus have been incredibly successful. Companies like Freeport, for example, have struggled a little bit with this exemption. So it will be interesting to see how C3 Bullion is able to launch this, and if tZERO has kind of mastered the distribution angle of their broker dealer and their prime broker dealer, which is kind of, I think, where they've put so much focus over the last few years. Other than that, Herwig, these are good announcements. I can't wait to see these companies kick it off and do more wonderful things.
Well, Kyle, I agree with you, and I hope you're excited about real estate because there's a lot of real estate news this week and token offerings coming to market. You got Amano tokenizing real estate on RWA Inc. You got Toyow and Nisus Finance tokening up to $500 million in real estate on their platform. In Saudi Arabia, there is droppRWA and RAFAL tokenizing real estate, supposedly the first in Saudi Arabia. RealT continues their pre-construction moves, and now in Medellin, Colombia, with their latest token offering. There's a $300 million Centaur fund. This one's by Zentari Capital on Subunit Pro's Ethereum token engine. Excuse me, Kyle. And the last one is Xend Finance and Risevest, tokenizing stocks and real estate in Africa.
Interesting. Well, look, RealT getting involved and continuing to crush it, now moving into the Latin American jurisdiction, I think makes a lot of sense. We know that they have that Remy at least is here in Miami, and so it's only natural that we start expanding that opportunity. And they've been so successful over the years with so many of their properties. I will not be surprised to see the success here. And more tokenized stocks news, Herwig. This does seem to be a growing opportunity in multiple jurisdictions. I'm not sure, as we talked about in previous episodes, the access of these types of jurisdictions, what they are able to invest in today versus what they're not able to invest in today. But I like it. And I think it only makes sense. We need to bring tokenized stocks to DeFi. I'd love to be able to collateralize my tokenized stock investments to then get leverage on that or to get yield on that or something like that. Makes a ton of sense. So I think that's the biggest one that I continue to look at and to see success for. So, but this RealT one, I'm definitely interested in learning more.
Real estate will continue to be hot as it's the biggest asset class out there. Apologies, everybody. I'm just talking so much. My voice is getting a little raspy. But that's it for this segment, thankfully. So with that, hopefully everybody enjoyed the news. Now, Kyle and I are going to pick what we thought was our favorite company making their biggest move this week. Let's do the companies of the week, Kyle.
All right, Herwig. It is the best time of the week. It is Friday. It is the companies of the week segment. This is the most incredible award that we have the honor of giving each week, which highlights two specific companies that are doing awesome things in the industry that we want to highlight for innovating, for driving the market forward, or for doing something special. And we're 287 episodes in, Herwig. Obviously, as we talk about every week, one winner of each weekly episode one winner over the whole year gets the nomination for Company of the Year. So this is a no joke award. This is your lottery ticket opportunity. And we got two companies here that I can't wait to shout out. And first, I'm going to let you lead us off, Herwig. Who you got?
Well, Kyle, I really have to give it to a company that, despite the fact that Circle is really trailblazing and really putting the RWA space on the map in a public way by IPOing, I actually have to give it this week to Plume. Plume's my company of the week because I think it's awesome to see them go mainnet. I think they've done a great job promoting the space and the concept. I think their vaults are a great place to start for people to start getting exposure to the over 100 million assets that they've launched with. It's a great starting pool of assets and only going to grow, no doubt, with folks like Apollo getting into it, probably bringing their product to Plume. Presumably that means they're going to have a focus around private credit. I think they were talking about some private credit indices and other things like that. So Plume's really building out their ecosystem. They've got a large ecosystem. They're also an RWA Foundation member, so I love to see that. But most of all, they've been working hard towards getting their mainnet launched, and they've officially done that. So that deserves a huge congratulations. For that reason, my company of the week goes to Plume, Kyle.
I think it's a great choice. Mainnet live is no joke, and we need more RWA chains that are specifically focused on driving tokenized asset adoption forward. I don't think the legacy existing solutions have everything that's needed for this industry to thrive. So awesome job to Plume, who has made some serious noise over the last 12 to 18 months of all of the amazing adoption points that they've done. And so I'm really excited about that one.
But I'm not the only one who gets to pick a company of the week, Kyle. So tell me, who are you thinking? Who's your winner this week for episode 287?
My winner this week is Figure Markets. I really like what they did with their decentralized lending capacity on their HELOCs. They're already, as you mentioned, the largest non-bank HELOC lender in the world. Now they're opening that liquidity stack to the broader decentralized financial market and allowing that. I think they're contributing with 20 million in funding, and they're going to grow that to be able to deploy into these types of assets and into these types of originations. I think this is a fantastic model. They have done, from my perspective, everything the right way, compliantly. They've built a real business behind their blockchain infrastructure, and now they're expanding that into DeFi. I think we really desperately need more of these types of players in the market. I think what Figure has done is really admirable, and I think it's going to be really successful. So for those reasons, shout out to Figure for building a decentralized, collateralized lending market backed by real institutional loans.
Figure really, one of the leaders in the industry, of course, over 15 billion in RWAs that they've done, mostly all of these HELOCs, majority of them. And that's no joke. That's a ton of HELOCs. A lot of people out there who are getting their financing fast against their home have no idea that all this is happening on the blockchain, and there's a whole world of finance being unlocked behind it. And now DeFi is going to tap into it too with this new democratized prime platform. Absolutely, all a great choice, great reasoning, Kyle. Huge. Awesome companies of the week, Plume and Figure Markets. And that's the show. We finally have the end of the show here. We are going to let everybody enjoy the weekend. But, of course, we're going to remind you that we do have our new beta at stm.co. You can check out the latest and greatest going on over there. We still have all of our reports over at reports.stm.co, all of our amazing content from Tokenize This. It's popping up on YouTube, so go check out those panels. There is so much good content, so many golden nuggets in those different panels. My favorite, the DeFi Vaults one. But I'm sure you'll have your own. And, of course, come join us for the RWA Foundation. Follow us on Twitter for the latest updates. Come tap into our Telegram. You can check it out at wallydow.xyz. Kyle, any latest and greatest from Global Settlement?
Well, we have a really exciting announcement coming through the pipeline. I was hoping maybe we could get it in for this show, but I think that by next week's episode, we will have a big, exciting press release to cover on a client that we've been working on for many, many months. And so I'm excited to say that global settlement is in testnet. We're working with clients on tokenization stuff and have some really good partnerships and actually deals that we've successfully completed that are coming through the pipeline.
Huge. That's amazing. Well, I can't wait for next week's episode already. Hopefully everyone else can't either. So we'll catch you again next week on Friday. And with that, happy tokenizing, everyone.